Okay, welcome back. We're talking about the slider and how the slider is not really complex, but its event handler is bizarre. And I don't commit it to memory, so I don't expect you to as well. So the next thing we're going to talk about is what's called a text area. Now, text area is very similar to a text field, except it allows you to have more than one line. You know, text field is like we have here where it says 25.1. That's just one line. If I wanted more than one line, I would use a text area. And other than that, that's about it. I mean, there's hardly anything to talk about, to tell you the truth. When you pick the size, you can pick it by rows and columns, you know, character columns, although that's not an exact science. Or you can do it by pixels. So you could say 200 by 400 pixels, right? Or you could say 5 rows or 10, you know, that kind of stuff. There's some very common methods. So on page 855, it goes through this. There's a dot clear, which obviously makes the text go away. A dot set text to make set, you know, put append text means you want to add more to it and add more to it and add more to it. And then one that says get text, which gives me everything that's in the box so far. Kind of cool? Okay. I don't think it's really a need to demo that. It's actually pretty doggone simple. The next thing we're going to talk about is menus. And so you know what we're talking about. Like up here, we have a row of a menu bar. Let me go ahead and close this guy down. You know, we have file, and under file is exit, and under edit, and, you know, all this stuff. Well, what if we wanted one of those in our application? So it's pretty much well expected, particularly in the Windows world, to have a menu across the top of your application. It's just kind of sort of normal. Okay, and so on page 887, they start talking about that. So you really need to understand the hierarchy of how this thing works. You have a menu bar, which is the thing across the top, and then a menu item. And inside the menu item, you can have, let me start over. A menu bar, and then you have the menu. And then underneath the menu, you could have a menu item, you could have a check item, a radio menu item, or yet another menu for a sub-menu. Like, I don't know if we have any sub-menus here. Yeah, sure we do. Like, here's a sub-menu, and here's a sub-menu. This menu just brings up another menu, right? Okay, cool. So I'm going to do a couple of these things, and we're going to go from there. So, one of the things you have to do with the menu is, I'm going to go ahead and build the thing, and then I'm going to show you how stupid it is to do it the way we just did it. Because menus are supposed to always be at the top. That's just kind of the way you expect them to be, right? So I need to have a thing called a border pane, okay? So I'm going to go here and build me a thing called a border pane. A border pane. So BP is equal to new border pane. Okay. And then in here, I can tell it what I want to be and where I want it to physically be. For example, in here, I want to say BP dot, and then I want to set the middle part. Okay. So set bottom, set center, right? That kind of stuff. I want to set the center on my VBox guy. And then change this back to... All right, so the reason I'm doing this is because I want my menu to be at the top. So I'm going to need a menu. I'm going to have a bp.setTop. And then it's going to be something. I don't know. I'm going to call it M for menu. I actually haven't written the menu yet, but that's beside the point. So now I've changed the order in which these things occur. The VBox now is inside this guy. Now the border pane typically is not, you don't normally use the border pane naked. In other words, you don't actually start putting stuff inside there. It's a top level, more like an abstract container. It's really intended for other types, like in this case, a VBox or a menu. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to go here and I guess it doesn't really matter where I put it. So here we go. I'm going to say menu M is equal to new menu. And of course, as you can probably imagine, or actually menu bar, right? That's kind of a weird way of doing it. Yeah, I need a menu bar. Sorry. menu bar, let's call it MB. And new menu bar, and let's change this to MB. Okay, and of course it's never heard of this before in its entire life. Okay, so now I have a menu bar. Cool. So now I want to create me a brand new menu. So I'm going to have a menu, and I'm going to call it, I don't know, I try to keep the name of the thing in there somehow, like mfile, okay, is equal to new menu. Okay, cool. And then I need to go ahead and let's add something underneath there. Oh, of course, it's never heard of menu before its entire life. So then I'm going to add a menu item. And so this menu item is going to be the exit guy. So I'm going to say menu, if I spell it right, yeah, menu item. And I'm going to say mi file exit. And the reason I do this because, I don't know, it just kind of makes sense to say like what's underneath it, like file, and then underneath is the exit. That's just me. New menu item, and it's going to be called exit. Okay, so far so good. Kind of makes sense. And of course, it's never heard of menu item before in its entire life. Okay, so far so good. Well, I built a menu bar, and then I built a file guy, and underneath file is exit. Cool. All right. So now I need to tell it where it all is. I need to tell them how they're all combined together. And this is a little clumsy. I basically have to go to the m file guy and say, oh, by the way, I need to get all the items that are in there. And then I need to add this guy, which is my file exit guy. Okay, that's cool. And then I have to go do the exact same thing over with the menu bar. So menu bar, get menus. And then add a menu in file. Okay, is that making sense? Okay, cool. Now, this should work because I've got this guy in here and he's at the top. Let's go see what he looks like. And there I have something called file, and underneath file. And if I click on this, what's going to happen? Not a darn thing, because I haven't written an event handler for it, right? Kind of makes sense. So you think maybe this m file exit guy needs an event handler? Yeah, I think he probably does, right? So, for example, in this particular case, let's make this guy really do close off the form. All right, so I'm going to add me an event handler about right here someplace. So this one is going to be mi file exit, right? So this one is actually kind of, unlike the slider, this one's actually pretty simple. Set, you know how this thing works. It's set on action, and the event handler is the same old, same old. It's the new event handler of type action event. Close the doodad, give it the bow legs, capitalize the H. And then put the cursor where it's supposed to be and hit the return, and then it'll ignore me. And then I put the cursor back and hit it a second time. God only knows why. Okay, so you remember how this thing works? So I have to do an override. An override public void handle. And it's of, I need to pass it my action event E. Okay, cool. So far so good. So if you clicked on this file exit guy, I want to terminate the application. Ooh, we haven't done that before. So I'm going to do system. By the way, system is the one that says this is unique to your particular platform. So most everything else is pretty straightforward, but when you get to system is In our case, very specific to Windows. Okay, so I'm going to go in here and say system exit. And then I'm going to tell it that everything is fine. There's an exit code, but we're not going to concern ourselves with that. So what I've done is I've set an event handler for file exit. When you click on it, it should terminate the application. Let's go see if it works. And as you can imagine, you can add more and more events on here. I mean, more and more items on here. So I'm going to click this guy and boink, it closes my application. Yay! It does what it's supposed to do. Okay, that's about all I really need you to know about event handling. It's not complicated. It's the same old set on action guy with the event handler. Okay. Now the next thing you need to learn is the file chooser on page 897. So a file chooser is what's called a dialog box. So a dialog box is when somebody says, hey, I want to save a file or open a file, something pops up on the screen and says, give me the name of the file, because I don't want to have to type in the file, because I can't type worth a flip. And so I need to have something where I can just pick something off the list. So this is a very common thing, these dialog boxes. Now we've used one dialog box already called alert. Pretty simple. This one is going to be about the same. It's not at all complicated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and build me one of these guys. Typically what you would do is you would do this inside an event handler, because normally you wouldn't just have a dialog box sitting up on the screen when you launch your application, right? So I'm just going to use the same old event handler we've been using here, okay? So here's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I want to launch an event handler. Inside my event handler, I want to, if you picked first, then I want to pop open a new file. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to say file chooser FC is equal to new file chooser. And of course, it's never heard of this before in its entire life. Okay, cool. Now, there's a couple of things you can learn about this guy when you're trying to launch one of these guys. One is I need to tell it because this is a window, right? A window. I need to tell it what its parent window is. Now, this is a philosophical discussion, so just take a deep breath. All right. If I have a dialog box open and I close my form, I want the dialog box to know, hey, I'm a child of this parent, and the parent has just been told to close, so I better do the same thing. Okay, that's a very common thing, that every time you launch another window, that it knows who the parent window is. So I need to tell it somehow where that thing is. Okay. So one of the things you could do here is you can go here and say, I'm going to say FC, I'm going to do show open dialog. But then I have to tell it who my current window is. My current window is stage. Okay? That's the guy. That's my parent. Okay, so I'm just going to run this just the way it is. I haven't made hardly any changes at all, but let me just get this guy. At least I think I will. Okay, there it goes. Just being ornery. Jeez, this is slow. I'm about to run out of time. We're almost at the 15-minute mark. Yay! So if I go in here and hit the thing, it's going to pop open this box. Okay? That's all it does. We haven't told it to do anything else. We just told it to pop open this box. All right, we're definitely up on the 15-minute mark. We'll fix this in a minute.